It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in my lungs, so I pour out my praise. I pour out my praise. It's your breath in my lungs, so I pour out my praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praises. Your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praises. Your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Hallelujah. Great are you. So the theme, just breathe. This is a theme that's been a working theme in my life throughout the time I've got in it. And it's quite funny that you take something so natural for granted, that you can just breathe. That even now as you sit and you listen and as I speak, you're just breathing. Oxygen is circulating throughout your body and you're not trying, because it's a miracle of God. It's something that we can inhale and exhale freely. When I looked at what it meant to breathe, it means to pause and to rest before continuing. But the one definition that caught me was it was to feel free of restraint. And restraint is something that limits freedom and prevents you from growing. And the question that came to mind was, are we feeling restrained by God, or are we feeling restrained by ourselves? Because as you read Isaiah 40, and I mean from the top all the way through to the bottom, Isaiah is having to continuously remind the people of how great God is. He's continuously reminding them that God is not like man, that God is not like us as physical fleshly beings. He is so far surpassed beyond our imaginations that how could we ever put anything next to him, in front of him, even behind him, because he can't be measured. He can't be restricted. So who are we being restrained by? When we are supposed to breathe, what are we doing? And as I read through the word and I looked through things, and the theme, like I said, just breathe. And it took me back to a place where I was so stressed. I had a panic attack at work. And throughout that whole process, I didn't understand myself, my being, 29 years, I didn't know what part of my body was what part at that time. And all they were telling me, Shannan, breathe. Shannan, remember where you are. Shannan, feel my hand. Shannan, feel your body. You are here. You're not dying. You're okay. You're okay. Breathe. And as I went through the word, it broke it down for me, because there's so many different points of breathing. There's so many different breathing patterns that I needed to understand. What's God saying? We have controlled breathing. Now, when we look at verses 21 to 24, Isaiah is reminding the people, have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the canopy. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. But we're trying to control our breathing. When I looked at it and I said, okay, but how is that established within our lives with God? And it's through our faith. When we're trying to control something, I can pick this up and I know it's in my hand. I can't take the oxygen from my body, put it somewhere else and pick it up when I want it, because it's not in my control. So when we're looking at those words, and I read those verses, dominion, authority and power were the words that came to me. Because God is not bound by our limited understanding. He's not bound by our limited intellect. And because of that, when we read those verses, we can then be reminded to just breathe. Because your circumstances and your situation shouldn't define your breathing pattern. It shouldn't define how you stand. It shouldn't even define if you fall down. All it needs to define is, how much am I giving to God to control? How much am I trusting in Him to bring me through? So who are you restrained by? When you're breathing, you're supposed to feel free from restraint. So when we're giving God this thing, are you giving Him everything, or are you holding some of it back? When we try to manage situations, we don't do things very right, because we don't know everything of that situation. As I said, during my panic attack, I had no idea where I was. All I knew is I couldn't breathe. And my lungs were not expanding in the way that they needed to. So the control that I had before was gone. That was my curveball. That was a time when I should have thought of, to whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal? Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. I didn't think of God in those moments. I could only want to think about how I could get myself out of this panic. And I didn't know how, because I don't have all the answers. So that brought me onto a place where I had to try and figure out what I was actually going to do. I had a choice to make. I could panic and continue panicking till I passed out, or I could listen to the people holding my hands. I could listen to them telling me, Shannan, take your time. Look at me. Remember your hands. Think of how they move. Think of your feet. I had that choice as to whether or not I accepted the help from them, or I tried to stay in control. Now we're bringing this analogy is us and God. So in that moment in time, and I had that choice to make, my breath quickened. And it was faster and faster and faster. And I thought I was breathing, and I wasn't, because no oxygen was going inside. As Minister Brenton said, when you're told to exhale exhale, you're inhaling, and when you're inhaling, you're exhaling, and nobody knows whatever is going on. But when we get to a place of that choice, and we say, God, okay, I tried to be in control. Okay, I tried to do it on my own. All right, God, I'm giving it to you. And it might be a moment, it might be an hour, it might be a year. Are you going to try and take it back because it's not in your time? Or are you going to trust God that He will deliver and bring you through? The Good News Bible says in verse 27, Israel, why then do you complain that the Lord doesn't know your troubles or care if you suffer injustice? Why do you complain? Now, we get to a place in our lives where we can trust God, but we only trust Him by words. We don't trust Him by action. We don't trust Him by the definition of I'm giving it to you, and no matter how long it might take, no matter who you might present in front of me, no matter what the situation might look like in that moment, we don't do that. We try to take it back because we know better. Or our timing is better. Oh, I'm supposed to be married by now, Lord. Where's my husband? Or my kids are supposed to be acting right, Lord. Where is my deliverance? But your season, yes, it's for a time, but that time is not up to you. The time it takes for somebody to come off of a ventilator isn't up to them. We saw through COVID people hooked up to machines. And I think there was something in the news where somebody had the machine taken off 2 years after they were put on it. But somebody else was 20 days. Another person was 2 weeks. Your timing is not defined by what you think it is, but it's by God's definition. So you just have to breathe. That's all that He's asking of us to do. It's your breath in my lungs. Because you hold your breath. Who's putting it back? You can inhale and take the deepest breath you can. But in the next moment, that might be the last one you take. Because it's not down to you. It's just in this time you just need to breathe. So when we're at that point of that choice, whether we complain or whether we ask God to deliver, do we believe God was the question. Do you believe God? Talk to me. Do you believe God? Yes. What does it mean to believe God? Anybody? To trust Him. Now, do you believe in God? Yes. What's it mean to believe in God? To obey and to trust. Are those two different questions? Someone said no. Do you believe God? Do you believe in God? An atheist can believe in God because they can believe God exists. When we believe God, it takes us to a different place because we have to put our all into Him. And we have to trust and believe in Him. And our faith no longer exists in our flesh or in science, but it believes in God. Amen. So it's not about the existence of God. That's not what we're talking about. It's us believing God is going to do what He said He's going to do. It's us believing God that if He says He's going to deliver you, He's going to deliver you. No matter what that looks like, your deliverance will surely come. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. I believe God. It's enough to believe that God is just with you. Because anybody can say, I've got my angels with me, but you still make the choices contrary to what God is asking of you to do. You're still trying to do everything on your own because, oh, God is just with me. He's not actually doing it for me, but He is if you allow Him. And that's the point, is when you're trying to do things by yourself without assistance because you think you're bigger and you're better than anyone else, and you're not. The choice is you taking God by His word and taking Him by His hand and allowing Him to come forward in front of you, because He needs to lead you, not you leading Him. Because the word said He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and His people are like grasshoppers. He spreads out the heavens like a canopy. Verse 24, He says that no sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, He blows on them and they wither. A whirlwind sweeps them away like a chaff. It's not to discredit or disgrace anybody here, but we are not God. We are this big in His sight. We don't necessarily matter, because He can still do whatever He needs to do if we turn around and say, we're not doing it, Lord. He will try and bring up another to do what we are refusing to do, because His will must continue. So what we need to come to an understanding of is, if you choose not to breathe, that's on you. But God will breathe life into somebody else. We need to come to an understanding that if we think, just think, the greatest thing we can think, God can still do better. God can still do greater. And He can still do abundantly above even that great thing.